So in here is my old Warhammer Fantasy army. About 3000 points of the Empire. And I haven't touched them for over 10 years. But this is going to change today. And here are my little guys. They were lying dormant like this for a decade, and I haven't opened the box once in this time frame. When Warhammer Fantasy was cancelled, I sold all my other armies. But I couldn't sell my Empire army. This was my first army. This was my first experience with Warhammer, and this was my first army that I had fully painted. The end of Warhammer Fantasy marked the end of an era for me. Except for some minor dabbling in other systems, I technically at this point left the hobby. The painting, the conversions, the playing, and most of these social connections I had back then. But these feelings of sour nostalgia turned into excitement and happiness really quickly, because now I have a reason to open this box again and get back into the hobby. I need to do a few things before we can hop into the first match of Warhammer The Old World. New bases, new movement trays, a lot of miniatures have wear and tear and I need to repair them. But I thought I'd just take you with me on this little journey of nostalgia and share my excitement. And here are some other things I need to do. All my regiments are aligned and built for the old versions of Warhammer. So I have 30 great swords and 35 state troops, 5 wide and 7 deep. Both don't make sense in the old world unless you want to be in a marching column, so I need to change those. I want both regiments to be wider, and I also want to split the state troops into 2. I also want my 2 knight regiments to be wider, and for some reason I never painted or built a standard bearer model for one of my knight troops, which I want to remedy this time around. And as I'm splitting one of my state troop regiments, I also need a new command unit for them. The issue is, if I want to split my state troops into 2 regiments, I need 12 new models and I only have 4 left. So I also need to design and build 2 unit fillers. And to make matters worse, after I moved 2 years ago, I cannot find for the life of me my bits. So, well. But as I wanted to 3D print some base adapters anyway, I can simply go ahead and 3D print a lot more than I need. Well, let's get into it. This was a few days of designing, printing and redesigning condensed in a few seconds. You're welcome. First, I created my adapter trays. I went for a solution that turned my movement trays into a magnetized movement tray that also converted my bases from 20mm to 25. I have a whole video on that, so if you're interested how I did it, check it out here. And I also had to magnetize all my 100 plus models. Good fun, good fun. But it felt great seeing my first regiment aligned and ready. Now I started the repair process. I think you know exactly what I mean by that. Riders are falling off horses, horse tails are falling off horses, everything breaks when it's around horses. Even the wheels of my cannons. And yes, those are also drawn by horses into battle. It all comes down to horses. Then I had those 4 Imperial troopers left. I converted those for a ghost-themed Vampire Counts army. But now they will be reconverted into Empire state troops. I was missing an arm for the banner though, and one of the upper bodies didn't quite fit, so I had to do unspeakable things to this model. And then there was just the simple matter of a little bit of decapitation. Speaking of ripping off heads, this is a Empire Wizard model that I converted to a Chaos Sorcerer. And this little guy will be perfect for my demonology whatever wizard. After I ripped his head off, of course. Then another tail is all this time. And no, I'm not talking about horse tails this time. Broken wizard staffs. I need to fix them. They can't really be pinned and they can't really be glued. So I'm trying to fix them by creating a little green stuff orb that keeps those two pieces together. Mix, mix, mix. I also had to fix a little gap after I transplanted a new head on my sorcerer. One of my staffs also didn't just break it, went missing as well. And as I wanted to give Elementalism a shot, I stole a bit from the Sisters of Thorn. I think that fits quite well. I wanted to repaint this mage anyway, because I didn't like the previous paint job. This may look like I'm fumbling, and this is probably true. Anyway, creating an orb with your fingers and green stuff while making it look nice is actually quite difficult. Stupid fingerprints. But in the end I think I succeeded. Now I had to do another transplant and create this little standard bearer here for my Inner Circle Knights. And here are some of my conversions after I primed them. I'm sorry, I printed them in black resin, I had it lying around. It wasn't the smartest decision as I am filming on a black background. But I hope you could follow anyway what I was doing. Or you didn't pay attention, have me in the background and just, well, as a white static noise. I'm fine with that. I do it as well. Now on to my unit fillers. I struggled to come up with a cool idea, as I am having plain grass bases, and it's the Empire, so floaty bits or magic stuff or something or monsters didn't quite work out. So I went with a boring big ass stone. And a second boring big ass stone, but this time around I am popping a little, well, smaller demigryph on there. Sort of like a little mascot. And I shushed up the other boring stone with some shrubs and skeletons and skulls. You can never go wrong with those. It's Warhammer after all. Also, the whole idea of my army is sorta that they are marching against Sylvania. So they might encounter more and more skulls and skeletons the farther they come. And here they are, primed and ready. Next in line is another transplant operation. This time around I have some designed bases that I want to get off the old size and onto new ones. And the idea is that I leave them more or less intact. Also you can see this Pegasus here and also my Griffin later on, they have different colors than my Averland scheme. I wanted to actually add a detachment from another part of the Empire to my former army, but this idea died when Warhammer Fantasy died, so I will repaint them later on to match the Averland colors. I was unable to cut off the designed base from the Griffin just by using a knife, so I had to, resort to more drastic measures. The Griffin-eyed viewer may have noticed that I turned the base of the Griffin into a twin-tailed comet, if you see it from above. And to my own surprise, I actually managed to saw off the base almost without damage to either the base and the constructed thing. I then glued it to its new base size. Also, I glued my cannons to their new base size, now that they are repaired. My steam tank came off its base all by its own. And I'm a little sad here, I cannot transplant this base to a new one, I need to redesign it, and I like the idea that you actually see those tracks in the grassland where the heavy steam tank was rolling along. So I got out my terrain texture and redesigned it. I had to put the steam tank in there to mark where those tracks will be, and if you're quick, you can actually clean those wheels off again without leaving any white residue. I then continue by improving those markings and finishing them so it looks like a steam tank was rolling through here. I also needed to add some texture again and some sand to those other bases I transplanted. And of course to my new regiment fillers. This is all the building, crafting and conversion work done. Now it's time for some painting. And like always, we are going to start with a primer. And by the way, I am going to emulate the paint style that I had about 12 to 15 years ago. I of course want those new guys to match the old ones in style and color. And oddly enough, this was quite a freeing and cathartic experience. Over the years I tried to constantly improve my techniques, my workflow, also my painting style. But this inevitably may lead to more work and you put more hours into it, and sometimes it becomes tedious painting so many models on a high level. So having the chance to actually go back to a simpler painting time, just sitting down with the good music in the background and just painting along, painting straightforward, it actually felt quite nice, and I think I will do this more often. This was actually my biggest problem. The good old Citadel paint. And no, I'm not talking about this issue that you see right here on the screen. By Sigma, how is this still happening after 25 years or something? No, the issue at hand is that I bought a new pot of color and it said Averland something. And of course it doesn't match the old color that I used at all. So I tried to eyeball it. I noticed it's a little bit more yellowy, a little bit less mustardy. So I put some more greenish yellow into it, kept mixing and seeing that I get as close as I can. And when I felt like I matched the color quite well, I painted it over my old standard bearer. Quite a baller move, I'd say. Also, it could have gone terribly wrong. And I would have cried and ended the video right here. This was one of my first freehands I ever did, and I cannot tell you how long it took me to finally finish it. And it still looks like that, so let's gloss over it. But not literally, I hate gloss varnish. So I then just continued with my old painting process. Some yellows, some blacks and a little bit of metallic paint. And then I did what I did back then and slobbered everything in a heavy wash. And then I brought back the color to the original base layer. This is what I did. I'm not sorry for it. I will continue like it with this project. Then of course I painted some simple highlights. With my two wizards though, I spend a little bit more time. I usually spend a little bit more time on my heroes, and I really wanted to make those two little guys pop. The demonology guy will have a purple coat combined with some blacks. And for my elementalism wizard, I went for a turquoise combined with a cream color. I gave the purple a heavy red filter. And then it was time for extensive dry brushing. Those wizard cloaks are just made for it. And here are some of my newly painted guys, ready to join the ranks. Now on to the last steps. First of all, painting all those nearly done bases. I am going to drench everything in a green static grass again, but on the edges you will always see these little sand parts. So I won't be highlighting it, just a simple base color, but then you won't have the simple black base underneath shining through. Also on those bigger bases, you always have some softer parts where not so much grass was gluing or adhering, and there you have it shining through, so it fits quite well for that. I also painted the stones real quickly with one of my easy stone painting techniques. I also did a video on this one, so if you want to check it out, here it is. Then I wanted to give a little bit more depth to these grooves that the steam tank left. So I just used a few pigments for that, real quick and easy. And I actually gave it a little bit of highlighting around these edges. Then I finished up my stones. And as promised, I drenched everything with static green grass. Once again, a sin of my younger years that I will now continue wholeheartedly. And now my whole army is refurbished and ready for the old world. I can't wait for my first game. I'm so mother fumbling excited. This gave me so much joy, refurbishing this army and seeing those little guys again, thinking about all the fun I'm going to have. And I hope that you hopped into the old world as well and experiencing the same. And if you are interested in my army a little bit more, the next video will be an in-depth overlook. Why I chose certain units, how I think they will perform, how I managed to use them in the battles that are to come, and well, what I thought about it. It's just a normal army overview video. So, well, see you in the next one.